Question of the day. We lay out for you all the things that you now know about the McCaffrey situation. What's your game plan for him the rest of the year? You're going to hold him out a few more weeks? Do you want fewer carries no matter what? Or, dude, turn and burn. Let's ride. When he's ready, let's go. Let's go right back to Christian the way it was last year. 888-957-9570. We want to play a little bit more Christian for you.
Okay. Bonus McCaffrey.
So he's kind of like what you said, right? You loved that he said, my mentality.
Yeah, mentality. He's ready to go.
I'm going to play. Take a listen to this.
You know, I'm not lying. I think as soon as a player says, maybe I'll play, maybe I won't, that's not a good mentality to go into a week with, when you're kind of on the fence. So for me, I'm ready to go.
Okay. I don't want to be on the fence. That's not a good place to be. So I'm ready to go.
Yeah, perfect. And if the doctors agree, Shanahan for sure would agree with that because he's one of your best players. And so he goes out there and he plays. And I do think if he plays this week, pitch count is not a real fair thing to look at because I think he'll be limited in that sphere in this first game back with no camp. But beyond that, if he's going to play, I've got no problem with him going out there and getting more than 20 touches in a game if that's the arbitrary number that people want to freak out at. I was looking at his game log for his career, and he's gone over 20 touches in a game. I think 36 of 94 regular season games.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
That's interesting because you said last year it was 14 of his 18?
Right, 14 to 20, and I guess he sat one, so 14 to 19.
Sorry, yeah.
It's about right. I'm just looking at his log here, and he's only had 17 games where he's had 20 or more carries. And then you add in the other games where, usually 17 or 18 carries and usually 3 to 6 catches. So he's been over 20 about a third of the time.
I don't really have an issue with using Christian McCaffrey as a bell cow, even this year. I'll tell you the only thing that I saw last year that I think there were moments that I questioned, it was Christian in the game when the Niners were up 3 scores. Like that would be another thing I would sort of add into this. If you're in the fourth quarter and you're up by 3 scores, hit the showers, dude. Hit the showers. You won that game. I don't even know why, Nick Bosa was on the field against Tyrod Taylor last week. The whole starting defense was. I don't know what that's all about. I mean, I get that maybe you just don't have all the players, but get your stars out of the game when that thing is cooked. And when you've got a minute and a half left and you're up, let's see, what would it have been? 32-13?
Correct.
Yeah. Nick, go sit down. That's the only thing that I got with Kyle as far as decisions with playing time.
How about Jordan Mason? Similarly, in a game where you don't have McCaffrey, and right now he's your only real trustworthy running back. You didn't give Garendo a carry, and Taylor Jr. didn't get a snap, so you had just him. You couldn't give Garendo 3 or 4 late ones just to get him in the flow.
Kyle Shanahan was asked today about Jordan Mason and handling the big workload.
When I've seen him, he hasn't mentioned anything. The trainers haven't mentioned anything. That's what I was kind of explaining on training camp that I thought was so impressive, having so many guys out and how hard he went each day and the way his body really never changed. So he ran so hard in that game, and he seems good to go.
See, I wonder if you noticed something subtle there about the way Kyle answers these questions. I think we in our mind, because we all think they're all kumbaya and good friends and everything. In our mind, we think Kyle is sitting there talking to guys every day. And then on the sideline, he's going, all right, let's see. So Jordan's at 19 touches. I really don't want him to have 20. That's not the way he thinks. Kyle's like, Jordan didn't say anything to me. The doctors didn't say anything to me. We good.
Right.
Go play football.
And honestly, in real time, I don't even think that it's something that he is thinking about. And that's a Bobby Turner call, the running back coach. And Bobby Turner is going to be the one primarily who makes these calls on substitutions. Now, if McCaffrey plays this Sunday, there'll be a plan. Okay, we'll give him the first 2 or 3 series, and then we'll go to Mason for a drive. And we'll go, for 3 and 1, 3-1, something like that, where you're going to split it up. But in this case, last week, it's Jordan's doing great. And they have no answer for him, and we haven't seen Garendo yet, so let's just go ahead and keep feeding him. And I do think that that's more of a Bobby Turner running back coach call than I don't think Kyle's micromanaging the substitutions at every position.
By the way, speaking of every position, Greg Cosell, our guy from NFL Films, is 20 minutes away. This will be every Wednesday at 3 o'clock And Greg is better than anybody in the business as far as taking you inside the film, looking at individuals. So Jordan Mason and Dominic Pooney and Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk will go through all of it and then also get a little preview of what's coming up this weekend. For instance, what did he see on film with Sam Darnold in his first game back as a starting quarterback? So we're going to have all of that coming up in 20 minutes. We promised McCaffrey's answer about turf. Okay, you got artificial surface this week. How does that affect this whole thing?
Yeah, if you can't run on turf, you can't run on the field. If you can't run on grass, can't run on turf. If you can go, you can go.
If you can go, you can go.
Yep. Yeah, I get it. And that's got to be the mentality. You can't go out there in week 2 and think, geez, my Achilles, I got this tendonitis. I can't cut hard on my left because I don't want the thing to blow on this artificial surface. He's got to have that mentality. I do think that history and medical people would tell you that the turf is going to be more taxing on the body than grass.
Sure, but I mean,
Doc Feely said it perfectly. Yeah. Grass is softer.
Yeah, it is.
I thought was great.
I've heard. And you know, but at the same, you can pop an everything on natural grass too.
No doubt.
Like for instance, what if, and I don't even know if these numbers are right, but let's play with that for a second. Like, let's say Christian McCaffrey's like, yeah, we're good to go. You're cleared to play. And doctors are like, 95% chance everything is totally fine if you go out there and play. And they go, well, what about on turf? And then they're like, that goes down to 90%. Is that, like, what's the gap that makes you go, I'm not doing it because it's turf? Because I have to imagine, as much as it is harder on the body, does it actually have a huge effect changing the chances of an injury in one specific game? I'm not a doctor, but I'd guess no. I would guess no. Like, if you're saying, what risk are you taking on turf that you're not taking on grass? I would argue that the risk is probably pretty similar.
Depending on the surface. And not every artificial surface has been created equally. And I was just curious as to what Minnesota has, and they've got UBU Speed Series SSM synthetic turf.
What'd you say to me?
Standard. It's your standard turf. But,
okay.
And I think about New York and the field that they have at MetLife, Field Turf Core. That thing is a booby trap. That thing's a clap trap. And New Orleans, the surface they play on is basically concrete. So every surface is different. Like the Rams, to me, and I haven't actually played on it, but just from the naked eye, it looks a little bit more like grass, like a softer turf than
brand new.
New York, New Orleans, Minnesota. So all fields are not created equally, and I'm sure the medical team is looking at all these angles.
So 888-957-9570, everything you know. What's your game plan for Christian McCaffrey this year? We'll be taking your phone calls on this throughout the afternoon. The more that I think about it, look, very few things in life are black and white. That's just not the way things actually are, even though we like to think of them that way because it's easier. I do think there's a little bit of that here, at least from Kyle's standpoint. I do think you almost have to dumb it down. Kyle's like, look, is he ready? Is he ready? Okay, then we're going. Like, we're not, and we're not going to have Kyle Shanahan over there with a box score. You know what I mean? PR's not going to come through after every quarter. Here's a fresh box score, coach. Here you go. Yeah, he's up to 16 touches. 16 touches. Oh, and he had to block 3 times as well. So, there was you can't do that. If the guy's ready to go, you got to go. And I don't look at any of these games as less important than other games. They're all important. They're all losable. And I do blend what we're talking about up against what I've sort of heard from everybody all off season. All in on this year.
Yep.
No excuses. Super Bowl or bust.
There he is.
I don't want to worry about. Why would you worry about next year? Next year. Worry about next year. Like, if that's
I'm more worried about January than I am next year.
Okay. Well, he's already gotten a month off that the rest of the guys didn't get.
Right, and it hasn't necessarily gotten better to where he can play football. So for me, you've given him a month off through camp and preseason, and now week 1 he's sat. So why all the rush? If he needs a couple, 2-3 more weeks, then so be it, to where you can get back on grass fields, which I believe are going to be softer on the body, and it's going to make it a little bit easier for him to deal with a tendonitis situation.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know that's what's actually reality. You know what I'm saying?
You never know.
Well, of course, but there you go.
You never know.
You never know. So this idea that I know is out there, just save him a few more weeks. What does that do? And by the way, how would everybody feel if they had lost Monday?
You'd feel a little bit differently.
Would you?
If Jordan Mason went out and played like a backup is supposed to, which would be 16 carries for 51 yards and a fumble, if he did what he was supposed to do, Mark, and you lose that game, you're feeling differently about rushing him back because teams that start out 0-2 before expansion, 11% make the playoffs.
Right, but then 49ers, I'm pretty sure, checks notes, are not going to start 0-2 this year.
Correct, yeah.
All right, what if they lose this one? What if he doesn't play and they lose this one?
Then you may think about more urgency against the Rams. I personally don't, because I look at the long game of the season, and I think we're going to be here in December and January. We should be a player in the playoffs. I'd rather have him be fresh then than rush him back now and have him be a little bit more run down when we get into those big games.
Let's talk about his workload then moving forward. Doc Feely with us yesterday.
I think when you look at his usage rate last year, he was 18 to 22 touches a game, maybe up to 25. 28 carries for Jordan Mason was the most a Kyle Shanahan player has ever had in a game. So ideally, you have him in the 15 to 20, and I think that's totally reasonable. I think the other nice thing is as soon as you put him out there, even if he's not the first, second, or third option, he's a decoy because he's so good. So I think once he gets out there, he will play. I think the athletic training staff and the medical staff is doing everything right. You take it slow with him now, especially if you're going to win a couple games with his backup. It's a long season. It's hopefully is another season that goes well into February. You want him fresh and you want him feeling as good as possible. And we know all these players don't feel 100% by the end of the year. So you want to conserve him as much as possible for the second half of the year and into the playoffs.
I'd see that's it. To me, look, he is a doctor, but that's a funny thought to me. Conserving him. I don't know how you conserve a football player.
You don't play him as much and you don't give him the ball as often. And thereby he doesn't have as many plays where he's getting tackled and contacted.
And then in December he gets a helmet to the knee and it explodes, and that's that.
You just never know, though. But I mean, you put yourself in the best place to maybe succeed later in the year, and you could look at McCaffrey last year in the playoffs. Looked like he was, slowing down a little bit.
Did it?
I think so.
What were his numbers? Do you have them in front of you?
I'll pull them up.
Pull them up.
Just looking at touches, last year 339, the year before 329. Those are his last two seasons. And the year before, obviously, was a combined year with what he had done in Carolina. His numbers right here. Playoffs, he had 3 games and 89 yards a game in the playoffs. And he had 19 catches in 3 games, so 6 catches, 6.3 catches a game.
He averaged 5.4 yards per carry in the regular season. He averaged 4.5 yards per carry in the postseason.
Okay.
So he went down almost a yard per carry. Small sample size.
Yard per target, he was at 6.1 yards per target. And during the regular year, he was at 6.8.
Yeah, pretty similar. And then
one gigantic fumble, which I don't know if I would attribute that to being fatigued.
He scored 5 touchdowns in 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looked like Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. I thought. He looked like Christian McCaffrey.
Well, and again, you're dealing with a player now who's in his 8th year. So, there is some wear and tear that's gone on with McCaffrey and his body. And I think that it's prudent when you think about what he did at Stanford and how much he ran there. And you start to look at all of his carries from college and the pros. Now, college carries aren't as rigorous as NFL carries, but he toted the ball a lot at Stanford.
No doubt.
In his 3 years. So I think about an older player. Not older, he's not even 30 yet, but he's a running back. And it might be prudent to try to limit him early so you have a better version late. It's risky.
I hear
I get
you.
It. I feel heard.
Well, I hear you. I just don't know if it actually does that. Like maybe that would have been a good question, or we can ask Pandy or Feely that next week. Like, what is the actual payoff of, like, I understand the idea of going easy when someone's returning or if they haven't had camp. But just in theory, let's say Christian is totally healthy right now. Does, like, chilling with a lower tote rate week 2, 3, 4, 5, if you do that, what's the payoff for week 17, 18, and playoffs?
Right.
Does that actually equal anything, or are you just praying, basically?
I wonder if they've done biometric studies on that. Dr. Pandya, I think, would have a good sense of that. He occasionally will do these research projects where he looks stuff up. And I'm looking at the total touches from McCaffrey last year, 417, including the postseason. And I wonder when a player gets to 350 or 400 touches in a year, if there is a drop-off at that point in productivity. Part of it is, and I'm going to point this out, that you're playing better teams. So you're playing good defenses, and you're in the playoffs.
100%.
Detroit, Green Bay, and Kansas City were your 3 opponents, and they're good teams because they're still playing in the playoffs.
Well, the only time he averaged under 4 yards a carry was the Super Bowl. That's it. And that was easily the best defense.
Yep.
That they played, at least in the postseason. One of the better defenses in the entire league. 888-957-9570. I'm not trying to pin you here, but let me ask you.
I didn't know we were wrestling.
No, I want to understand 2 answers, because 3-4 weeks ago you sat here and kind of made fun of us.
Oh, big time.
Okay, fine. You made fun of us.
You and Steiny.
And Guru.
Oh, that's right. I was me against the world.
You made fun of the whole room simply because, and I wasn't even arguing against it, I simply didn't understand the idea of playing Brock Purdy in the preseason with non-teammates, second stringers,
right?
Whatever. All the other first stringers were sitting. And he played Brock Purdy. I thought it was a head scratcher. Now, your thought was, hey, Foofy 4, let's go. They're football players.
Yeah, he's healthy.
You play.
When you're healthy, yeah.
But what if Christian is healthy? Well, he's saying he's healthy.
Then you play him. I personally don't think that he is, quote, healthy. Brock Purdy was 100% healthy, and he wanted to get some reps. So you play him. And you played him behind 2s and 3s, and you trusted him to stay safe, and he did. Christian McCaffrey is clearly not healthy. He couldn't play in preseason games, and he was unable to go in week 1. So for me, it's apples and oranges. If McCaffrey is healthy and the doctors say, yeah, he's healthy enough to play him. I'll be holding my breath because he's pretty important.
I mean, I do that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of every NFL season. I did it the other night when Debo went on that end around and got flipped up, got hit hard in the leg, and he threw the ball up in the air, and then he just kind of sat, and there was a Jet player that got hurt. I think it was the one who hit him.
Yeah. That was on our side of the stadium. I was looking right at Debo. He took a knee.
And he just sat there. He wasn't laying down, but he just sat there. And the crowd started to chant his name. And I was holding my breath. Like, there's at least one of those every game, isn't there? Playoffs against Minnesota, the first Super Bowl year, whatever that was, 4 or 5 years ago. Bosa goes down. Crowd starts chanting his name. Eventually, he gets up, runs off the field. Place goes nuts. But, yeah. We're going to have those. We're going to have that. It happened with Christian. It happened with Trent. Happens with Debo. It feels like 4 times a year. George in the Super Bowl.
Dre Greenlaw in the Super Bowl.
Wow. You didn't have any chance to hold your breath on that one. It was just out of breath immediately.
Right. And that was one where, the turf field at practice was kind of aggravating his Achilles, and then it just went. And I'm not saying if a guy's got an Achilles that hurts, you never play him. But if he's healthy and he gets cleared, play him.
Let's go.
You're not going to give him 25 touches. I would rather them not play him against Minnesota. See about the Rams. If you're 2-0, maybe you get the Ram game too, and we'll see you on grass, bro. Yeah. You can play on the grass.
Go ahead and keep that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and keep that. Mac T
Grandy didn't like it.
In the Yoon is on Willard and Dibs. Mac T, what's up? What are you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? I think you have to be gratuitously conservative with CMC. The research and everything shows that when running backs turn 28, they just deteriorate really badly. I believe that's his age. The other thing that's not really been mentioned is you're talking about the touches. If he's a starting running back, what about all the times he has to block and he has to hit an NFL linebacker? Like that takes mileage off as well. Additionally, his dad had him running sleds when he was 5 years old. He has these crazy workout routines, which is awesome. But for somebody that's 28, I think his mileage is probably like 150,000 miles. So I think you just have to really, really, really be conservative, more so than you would think.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that. Mac T, thank you very much. I get where you're coming from. But
Sleds at 5. I like it. I like the parenting.
Okay, two things, right? Like Christian McCaffrey is 28. That means he's about to slow down. I would argue Christian's different. I think we've already seen it. Not only is he more talented, I think he's in better shape than the next guy. I don't expect Christian McCaffrey to fall off of a cliff just because he's 28. We have seen exceptions. Every running back's different. Sometimes it's 30. Sometimes it's 32. Curtis Martin. Other guys, it's 25. You know what I mean? You see guys fall off the cliff at different times. Now, the idea, though, of mileage, like, do you have a car? You have a car?
Got a Honda Fit, Mark.
Okay.
130,000 miles on it.
Do you drive it?
Yeah, it doesn't run like it used to.
Okay, but do you
Still
drive
pretty
it?
good, of course.
Okay, are you like, oh, it's got 130,000 miles on it. I should stop driving it so that 3 years from now, I can still drive it. The whole point of having a player in his prime is to use him. Like, I'd argue, this is what's amazing. If Christian's about to fall off a cliff physically, use him more. Use him more.
That sounds mean-spirited.
Well, no. Like, get every last drop out of his prime.
I'm with you, but
if he's about to go down, then let's have his usage go down when he's not as good in 2 years.
Well, then let's just use him in December and January. That's my argument is, yes, if you think that he's starting to deteriorate, and there's no evidence to that fact yet, but you look at his overall touches since Stanford, and he's over 2,500 touches. So it's not about the years and the age. For me, it's about the touches. And, 2,500, I wonder what the line is for some of the greats where their total touches, when they reached a number of those, that they started to fall off. It's not about how old you are. It's about how much you've done already.
Well, but he's already surpassed so many running backs as far as that. Like, how many running backs even get this opportunity anymore in the NFL?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, we have to turn the faucet off now.
You don't have to turn the faucet off, but save water for December. That's all I'm saying.
I just don't know if it works. Where's the data that works? You know what I mean? Like, like the only team I can think of in pro sports to try to do anything like that was the Nationals with Steven Strasburg, where there was this idea of like, yeah, we got a certain number and we got, you know what I mean? Like when it's over, it's over. And so we got to try to like slow play this. I just don't know if saving him actually helps in any sort of a significant percentage kind of a way.